All right. You there, Mart? We
I
are
am.
live.
Yes,
Today
we are.
today's going to be a really good topic. We're going to be this is something that I got from a viewer. We're going to be talking about what to do when your mind goes blank, especially when you are talking about politically charged, let's say, topics at work where we should not be doing that to begin with. So let's get right into it. Before we do, I'm going to start out with what we should be starting our day with, or what we should be doing before we go into, let's say, the lion's den, or a situation that might become emotionally charged or a difficult communication situation for you. One of these
Hey,
crucial
Dan.
conversations. Yes, Mart?
You are, I believe, and I'll ask Sarah. Hi, Sarah. I
Hi,
think
Sarah.
you're a little choppy. I think you're going in and
Am
out.
I?
Maybe Sarah can confirm that.
Okay, let me try to close any windows that I might have open that shouldn't
And
be
it could
open.
be my computer, but I think it's yours. At least I want to blame you.
Okay, how is it now?
It's pretty good right now.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Talk fast.
All right. Then here's what we're going to do today for anyone who might have missed what I just said. Let me pull this up to make sure that I have my day correct. Okay. We are going to be talking about navigating difficult conversations in today's politically charged and very, very, very frequently polarized world. Okay. So when you're having those crucial conversations at work, when you're dealing in professional communication, many times what happens is our mind goes totally blank, right? Because we deal with people who are so outrageous and say things that are so inappropriate. Don't feel bad when your mind goes blank. How would you know that these things are going to be thrown at you? You know, it's not normal, or it's not something that we would anticipate for people to behave in an appropriate way. So what you want to do is, first of all, before you head into work, before you head into a situation that you know is going to be maybe challenging, or that you'll deal with toxic people in the workplace, for example, remember to be very clear as to who you are going in there. You don't want to have to, on the fly, define who you are. And Marty, do you remember we talked about those three very simple statements that you create, which is going to be your personal compass? Do you remember what those were? I
am.
I am. I want.
I want. I'm missing the third one. I can't think of it right now.
I know who I am. I know why I'm here, and I know what I want. And
there we go.
Yep. If you fill in those three statements, again, you can choose one word. So as we're going into the show today, if you're listening, if you're watching, to practice, what would you say to those three statements? How would you fill them in? I am blank. I'm here to blank. I want blank. And if that's a challenge for you, that should be a sign that you're not doing it enough. You know, if you have to stop and think, what do I want? And it's not going to change depending on the situation in which you find yourself. So many times people will ask me, well, am I at work or am I at home? It doesn't matter. You're there. You know, or what is your purpose? It should not change when you go to work, because we're talking about your real purpose here. Why am I on the planet? And the vehicle that you may be using today may be your position at work. If you're a bus driver, for example, you know how we meet some bus drivers who seem like they're so enlightened. They're so in the moment. We meet them, in the moment we meet them, it's as if, wow, you are here fulfilling your purpose on the planet right now at every moment of the day. It's because they kind of, whether they realize it or not, they do this. They know what their purpose is, no matter what role they're playing. So keep that in mind. And also, I wanted to start off with my affirmation. And Marty, we didn't talk too much about affirmations before, but I wanted to mention this. Do you ever do affirmations, Mart?
I think to a certain extent, I probably do. I don't know that I'd consciously call them that, but yes.
Do you remember how Dad used to have Post-it notes on the mirror everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have some of them. I just found them, Marty. I found yesterday, as a matter of fact, last night, I pulled out an envelope from a top shelf, and it was filled with Dad's affirmations and things that he had torn out from books. I'm going to share those with you in a little bit. But I realized more as an adult how important that is, because we are bombarded. People who do not do affirmations, you're missing out, because we are told who we are constantly, from the people with whom we work to the messages in advertising. I mean, people are always bombarding us with messages saying, here's who you are, right? Like, whether it's, and they're very rarely positive, because when we are listening to something, or when we're looking at billboards, the messages that are telling us who we are, that are constantly being thrown at us, are going to inevitably say, we are broken, we are missing something, we are not whole. And that's because they want to tell us, but our product or our service will make you whole, right? So we're constantly receiving all of these messages that I'm not thin enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not cool enough, I don't have enough love in my life, things like that. So there's somebody that's inside of us. We have our own self that's inside listening to what we say and what other people are saying, and it's receiving these messages, whether you like it or not. And these messages are forming the blueprint of who they believe they are, and that's us. That's our inner self. And if my little Dan is listening all day to these messages telling me who I am, and they're negative, and I never take the time to say, just so you know, Dan, you are perfect. You are a perfect representation of the love of which you are made. How would I know that? Like in the Fajan. If you have not yet gotten a whiff of the Fajan, it's time. But little Carlos, the elephant who paints pictures, was saying, how would anybody know they're special if nobody ever told them they were? If your parents never told you were special, I'm sorry, but you are. However, you would not know that if no one ever told you that. We need to be told things. And if I'm not telling myself who I am, then I'm letting all of the outside influences make up that blueprint that will then determine who Dan believes he is. So affirmations are no more than just pushing back some of the messages that were being sent all the time and saying, enough. Here's who you are. And my affirmation for the day is, I am a perfect representation of love. I am perfect. So Marty, say that.
I am a perfect representation of love.
Yes, you are. So that said,
so are you, Dan?
Yes.
And so is Luck, Monkey, Sheep, Jan, Linda, and Sarah. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm just about to get into now. I'm going to give you 5 things that you can use when your mind goes blank. Now, you should already have, if you're in a difficult situation, if you're in a situation where people are saying inappropriate things and your mind goes blank, you should already have what are called duct tape tactics. And duct tape tactics are called duct tape tactics because what do we use duct tape for, Mart?
Everything.
If something's broken and we need a quick fix, like a quick temporary fix that works for just about everything, duct tape tends to do the trick. And these are called duct tape tactics because you should have them right at the right at the top of your bag of tricks, so that when you need to reach in and grab something, they're right there. They're at the front of your mind. These are going to be things that you should practice every day. If you struggle with responding, if you struggle with toxic people at work, practice these types of communication strategies every day so that when you need them, they're ready. Like we talked about yesterday, like the soldiers practice taking apart and putting back together their guns. You want to practice saying these things so that you don't have to think about it. And when the moment arises, you can just spit them out, like, okay, if you are my age, even if you found yourself in the most difficult of situations and you were tongue-tied, I bet that you could tell me, no matter what goes on in Big Mac, if you're my age. 2 all beef patties. What comes after that, Mart?
Special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Right. Now, I didn't set you up for that, right? Now, if you are under the age of maybe 40, you're not going to know what we're talking about. But I think maybe 40 or 50 years ago, there was a right 40. I don't know how many, Marty, if you could check on it, that would be great.
Sure.
But yeah, about 50 years ago, there was an ad campaign for McDonald's where that used to be how ads were. Like if I were to say plop, plop, fizz, fizz, what comes after that, Mart?
Oh, what a relief it is.
Oh, what a relief it is. There were so many slogans and jingles and there used to be songbooks that we used to play on the piano that were made from the jingles of the day. I can't even think of anymore, but advertising was a little bit different. And they used to plant these messages in our brain. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun. If I were to say, Mart, I'd like to buy the world a Coke. What comes after that? Do you remember?
I'd like to buy the world of Coke and keep them company.
Yeah,
buy the world of Coke. Wait,
no, you got it right. But that was the second line. The first line was
perfect harmony.
I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
1974, that song came out.
The
Big Mac commercial.
The Big Mac commercial. 1970 what? 1974. So
you were 10 and I was 2.
Well, anyway, 50 years later, if you're listening to this and you're 50 years old, you know what comes after 2 all beef patties, special sauce, if I ended it there, you'd be able to say lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun. Now, that was just a commercial on TV, but it's stuck in our brain because of repetition. We heard it all the time. It was over and over and over, played again, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. If I were to, like the upset stomach so you can rest medicine, the NyQuil, whatever, Pepto-Bismol.
Oh, that's the, nighttime sniffling, sneezing,
Nighttime
coffee.
sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you can rest medicine.
By Vicks, of course.
Right. Now, I haven't thought of that one for 30 years, but you can say the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you can rest medicine. Bing. Why? Because we memorized it one time. And after 30 years, I can still remember it. So that's what you want to do. Now, that was, again, speaking of outside forces, that was outside forces telling us what's going to be in our brain. So if you do not think that you're susceptible to the affirmations, which is what they are, that advertisers are sending to you, telling you you're too fat, you're too old, you're too ugly, you don't have enough love, all of those types of affirmations, if you believe that you're not susceptible to them, you're wrong. And you want to offset those with your own affirmations. And an affirmation, if you're making your own, by the way, start off with I am. They're kind of like coping statements. Like, Marty, you're kind of a crybaby. What do you start to do when you're not thinking right and you don't have your tactics handy and you find yourself in a situation where you think you're going to cry? Like, what do you start to say to yourself so that you don't cry?
You have been told that boys don't cry, and then I sing the Cure song.
Right. And that's why you're a crybaby, because you don't have it down right. Like a
work.
coping statements, for example, coping
Yep.
statements have two critical components. They are in the present and they are positively phrased. For example, instead of I don't cry, or the average person will say, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to get angry.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
negatively phrased in the future, right? So I should be saying positive in the present. That's the right syntax. Our brain receives and processes information only when it's given in the right syntax. If it's not, it's just like another computer, garbage in, garbage out. So I want to be able to give it the right syntax, which is positive, present, I am strong, for example. That is correctly phrased so that my brain I realize that we can't throw away our emotions and all of a sudden say, oh, well, I was going to cry, but I'm not anymore. But it will give us an edge. It will, along with other strategies that we use, will give us an incredible edge over people who are just winging it and saying, I'm not going to get angry, I'm not going to cry, and then explode and cry and all of that. There are, by the way, if you are a manager or supervisor, like we were just talking to the Amy Davies, who is I believe she's one of the top VPs in Victoria's Secret now. Hi, Amy. And we were talking about what do you do when your employees cry? There are strategies for that too. If you are a manager dealing with crying employees, for example, when you start to give them some feedback and they cry to try and avoid these situations, there's a very specific strategy that you want to use, which is 1, 2, 3. Number one, you want to acknowledge and empathize with them by saying something such as, very simple, I see this as upsetting to you.
Yes.
That's number one. Okay. Number two, as you're saying that, you want to reach for your box of tissues and a bottle of water. And so you're going to be saying, I realize this is upsetting to you. So here, and then you plunk down the bottle of water. Why don't you take this water and here's a tissue. And then you ask them a empowering question. And an empowering question is a question where you say, would you like to do this or that? For example, would you like to take a moment and compose yourself before we continue this conversation? Or are you ready to continue now? Those are your two options. You can take these tools, the bottle of water and a box of tissues, and compose yourself, and we will continue this in about a minute. Or are you ready to continue this right now? Those are your two options. But since you're making the choice, it's empowering to you. That's what you do with a crybaby at work. But that said, as you can see, these are all strategies that you want to practice in advance because you're not going to be able to think of them on the fly. Right, Mark?
Absolutely. That's why we like to. Well, I mean, to me, and I put it in my language, so it's a different kind of language, but it's still a language. It's like boxing, right? So like if you ever see a street fighter, like those are people that respond. They react. They don't respond. They think they're responders.
Right.
They're reactors. And that once you see somebody who practices a jab and practices. So, like, for example, when you're talking about somebody who can't think because they've been asked a crazy question at work, that's like somebody kind of throwing a punch at your face. And if you haven't practiced being punched at your face, it's really freaky. So you jerk back and then you don't know what to do.
Yeah, I remember. By the way, if you see my brother Marty walking down the street, to test these theories out, do try and punch him in the face. Take him off guard.
Hey, just 1 second. I want to say hi to Elena and multi-watcher Aaron.
Hi, Elena.
And let's see. I hope I'm not missing anybody. Linda, we've already said hi. And
hi, Linda.
We've got Brain Damage, Anita, Truth Seeker. Sarah's still here. Oh, P.S. Little conversation side note going on with some of your folks here. They're asking, they say, well, Sarah says, Dan told us he looks like Pee-wee, which I disagree with.
I look like him. I just said that's what he's be called.
Dan needs more self-affirmations. However, Monkey Sheep right afterwards says, nah, he's more of a Robert Downey Jr. They're kind of picking all of the ones that you've had through the years. These are if you look, if you've known Dan long enough, and I have, you've heard this, both of those comparisons actually quite a bit. I think, well, hey, he doesn't have an iron suit, but he does have a silver tongue. That's what Monkey Sheep says. I think Monkey Sheep may also be a Davies, because earlier they said, I just tell them that my ability to handle your stupidity is diminishing with every word you say.
Okay, now wait. We don't want to say things like that. I mean,
you don't know that that's true, but it's funny.
Yeah, well, you could say that, but it's not within the parameters of this particular mindful communication.
That may have been a joke. I think I feel like Monkey Sheep may have been joking.
Just so that we can address that, a lot of us really do come up with, and I am one of the top offenders. I'll be washing dishes, let's say, after having had a difficult person get the best of me. And so I will be thinking to myself, the next time they say that, here's what I'm going to say. That'll really get them. That'll really get them. And I'll try to engage with them on the battlefield as what they are. If they are a sniper, I will be thinking about, next time they say that, I'm going to snipe him this way. I'm going to say that. That'll really get him. And I'll try to best a sniper or best an exploder or a passive aggressive communicator trying to do what they do on their turf. And number one, I'm not going to win that battle because they've been a sniper their whole life and I'm just trying to do it for 5 minutes. And number two, why would I want to win the blue ribbon for the ugliest communicator at work or the most unenlightened, insulting communicator that I know? But I don't tend to realize that until, let's say that you do win. If you ever do win one of those little battles, which is rare because, again, chances are you're not that difficult person. But when you win, I feel such a feeling of like I let myself down. And that's the worst type of what do you call it? Of disappointment, when you're letting yourself down, when you realize, oh my gosh, I'm better than that. Like when you realize that you let someone else drag you down to their level. So just so you know, if something has anything to do with the other person, basically, that's going to be, and especially insulting them, you're going to be going on the wrong path. These five strategies that I'm going to be giving you today are going to be in addition to the basic, like, that's interesting. Why would you say that? Interesting. Why would you do that? Interesting. Tell me more. Interesting. Why would you ask that? Those are the 4 duct tape phrases that in any situation you can use, and you'll be able to buy some time. You'll be able to respond without reacting. But these
you say that one more time, Dan? I just like it when you say those 4 things.
Yes. That's interesting. Why would you say that? That's interesting. Why would you ask me that? That's interesting. Why would you do that? Or that's interesting. Tell me more about that. With those 4 phrases, you can respond to anything. And what I should be doing under normal circumstances is actually gathering more information and saying, well, interesting. Why would you ask me that? Like, I don't want to say it with the intention of, interesting. Why would you ask me something like that? Now, sometimes I would say, for example, Marty, why would you ask me that question that is personal to me in front of all of these people? Are you trying to embarrass me? I could say that if I want to be direct and spotlight your behavior. Why would you do something like that, which is something is disruptive during this meeting? What, are you trying to disrupt this meeting? I could be saying that, but if I'm just taken off guard, you can always say to somebody, interesting, why would you do that? Or why would you ask that? Why would you say that? And I actually want to know, why would you do that? Because what you will find is if you ask it enough, people will give you answers where you'll be like, oh my gosh, I get it. Why, you weren't trying to be insulting at all. I get it. Oh, like, you always find when you find the truth, truth speaks to us. It whispers to us. Truth is something that you recognize, you don't learn. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know it again when you see it or hear it or feel it. And when you get to the truth of something, it's that feeling of, I understand. I understand that you're doing the best you can with what you have. I get it. I was judging you. This difficult situation. I was believing that you were being difficult, and here that was me. I'm the difficult as usual. It's all about me. I am the difficult person. Like the Taylor Swift song. What is that? Hey, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. We tend to learn that more and more and more. And so the more I uncover problems and fix them and realize they were all about me, the more I realize that must mean that all of my future problems and challenges, that's going to be about me. The way I feel about them anyway is going to be about me. So I want to have these types of things ready. Are you ready, Mart?
I can't wait. I've got my pen right here.
Okay, write this down. And if you're listening to me, this could be like a flashcard where if you find yourself at a loss for words, especially in a polarized conversation at work that you should not be taking part in ever. If you're talking at work about something that does not directly contribute to the success of your organization or your team or your project or you as a professional, if it's not contributing to that, you should not be addressing that or giving it any energy at all. But if you do, you find yourself and you wake up and say, what am I doing? Number one, I don't know about blank, but I do know about blank. We'll get to how to use this in a moment. Phrase number two, I understand blank. Do you understand blank? Let me stop there and talk about those two. I don't know about blank, but I do know about blank. And I understand blank. Do you understand blank? Here's how we'd use those. And these are, again, duct tape tactics. You can use them in a variety of different circumstances. Marty, quickly, do you remember who Sarah Huckabee is? Do you remember her?
Yes, the governor of Arkansas. I do. Yes.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Well, you remember when her first job not her first job, but do you remember how she kind of came onto the scene as the press secretary for Donald Trump? Do you remember that?
DJT, yes. Yes.
DJT.
That must that big plus in her resume.
Yes. And so I love to study people like that, even though I'm not necessarily in agreement with what she's saying or how she said it. It was, first of all, interesting to watch her evolution, how she changed from the beginning to the end based on information that she decided to accept. But one of the things she was excellent at doing was deflecting questions. When somebody asks you an inappropriate question, for example, or somebody brings up something inappropriate in a conversation, there's a playbook that press secretaries use in this administration that we have today, in the previous administration, in just about all administrations, where they decide going into a meeting what their agenda is. And if, like, Marty, what's one of your talking points of the day what's something that's important to you in terms of politics? Something that you wish you could contribute to getting done? Something that you see as a need?
Sure. More inclusive workforces on construction sites.
Okay, so that's more diversity, more diverse workforces, more inclusive?
That's correct.
Okay. And why do you want to see that happen?
Because right now it's like a white boy club, and I don't need that. I want to have diversity, and I think that,
okay. All. So great. So let's say that you were to say to me something like, let me think of a good example. So you're going to say, well, Dan, don't you think that's insult me in some way, Marty, when it comes to my work?
Insult. Okay. You mean you want me to insult your work? I could
just
say
insult me somehow. We're having a conversation.
Don't you think everybody knows this? I mean, that's the thing. Is it's like I don't even know why you're teaching it. It's all just common sense. If you don't know it, what's so important about what you do?
Well, I don't know what's so important about. I don't know what you would believe is important about what I do, but I do know what is important at the work site, and that is a diverse workforce. And let me tell you why. So that's what they do. They say, I don't know about what you just said, but I do know about my talking point, and here it is. And when you use a tactic like that, I don't know about what you just said, but I do know about blah, blah, blah. And they tie it together, using the word, like you said, why is it so important? Well, I'd say, well, I don't know why you would believe what I have to say is important, but I do know why having an inclusive workforce is important. And let me tell you why. And so that is a logical transition from one talking point to another, and I deflected it, but it appears as though I addressed it to people listening. You know what I mean? So that's a really good.
Can we change it to just because I see Mary Doll, who's a new supporter of yours.
Hi, Mary.
She's saying it's an excellent topic, especially at family gatherings where people like to gossip and talk.
Sure.
Baloney.
Okay.
So maybe it would be something like if we were at, like you've got that crazy drunk uncle guy that shouldn't be talking, but he does anyway. And he talks about something that's controversial and borderline. Maybe you shouldn't talk about that, Jimmy, like, the border's crazy right now. And, I think there's a lot of people coming in that shouldn't be here because they shouldn't be here. And that's not good. And this guy's not doing anything about it. I mean, we could just insert everybody. Sure. So yeah, well, this current dude's letting everybody come in. The fucking guy. Oh, sorry. He's drunk. Sorry. So he's swearing. So, okay. Now what do you say?
Well, again, you should have a variety of different tactics that you could use. But if I were to use that one, and I don't believe that's the best fit, if I at the time believed it were, it might sound something like, well, Mark, I don't know about what's happening at the border, but I do know about what's happening at this table. And I think it's a lovely dinner. Wouldn't you agree with that? And then I would move along and talk about the stuffing. Could you pass some of that dark meat? It's and then I would make a joke about the dark meat. So,
sure. What about Mary Doll says, my mom talks about her sister nasty. I'm not going to
talks about her sister. His name is Nasty. Like, here's your one chance, Nasty. Don't let me down.
Oh boy, Mary's talking our language. My Catholic, very judgmental mother.
Those don't exist. We call them loving mothers.
Yes,
that's what we call them.
They are. I don't know what Mary's talking about, but boy, if I had a mom like that who listened to this show,
what is her question though? What is she saying?
About how much I like her, huh?
What does she say? What's the question? Like, should I use this?
I think she says, God, this could be our house. Mary, what's your last name? So she says, so now what I'm seeing is, so she's talking about her mom nasty. So I don't know, maybe for all we know, or no, her mom's talking about her sister. So maybe let's just say her sister got divorced. I mean, if she's very Catholic and judgmental, she might say, oh, you got divorced and that's bad. And you shouldn't get divorced.
Well, depending on the situation, depending on like the location. For example, if this is my house, or maybe I'm a guest at somebody's house, if things like that, if I'm at a restaurant, I'm going to give you tactic number 3 because I already gave you tactic number 1. I don't know about that, but I do know about this, and then changing the subject, deflecting. Or I could use number 2. Mom, I understand that you believe that your sister is acting inappropriately. Do you understand how having those types of conversations here at the dinner table hurts me? Do you understand that? You could say that. But so that was the second one that we had talked about. And you can always use that. Like, okay, I understand that you believe that my position is incorrect. Do you understand that I don't want to talk about this? Do you understand that this is an inappropriate venue to discuss that? You could say that, for example. But number 3 is one of my favorite ones in situations specifically like the one you just described. I like to be a positive, because we have to have the mindset. I like to contribute in a positive way to those around me, to the conversations. If that is an impossibility, because I believe that this conversation has now devolved into, we're all just going to talk about people who aren't in the room, or if we're going to be talking about things, if I'm the only one who might be on my side of the discussion, and it's going to turn into an attack fest, or maybe it's just, I'm done with you all. I've eaten dinner. I've fulfilled my obligation. Why would I have to sit here and simmer in your misery? I'm out of here. If that's it, I might just say something such as, well, I have nothing positive to contribute to this conversation, so I'm going to remove myself from it. Have a good one. Goodbye. And so if you want to, and that's, by the way, doing a couple of different things. It's number 1, establishing I'm in control of who I talk to, when I talk to them, what I talk about. I'm in control of that. And so if this is a situation in which I feel I have nothing to contribute, I'm going to remove myself from it. I can do that. I don't need to explain myself. If you're going to say, oh, sure, you just can't take it, that may be, have a good evening. I don't need to explain myself, justify myself, but I'm going to, when I say that, remind everybody, and including myself, I contribute in a positive way. If I have nothing to contribute here to this conversation, I shall remove myself from this conversation. Have a good evening, everyone. Happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, and a Festivus for the rest of us. I'm out of here. Goodbye. Simple. And if this is at work, for example, we should have already, by the way, does anyone have another example? Because number 4 is another situation, is another phrase that I like to use when you're using a duct tape phrase to navigate out of a conversation, to change the direction of a conversation, to remove yourself from a conversation. You want it to reference the rules or the rule that's being broken or a reason why you're doing this. I mean, at least give a reason, because that will help train those people how to treat you in the future. If people are treating us in a way that we're not happy with one time, that's about them. But if this is happening second time, third time, fourth time, that's about you, because this should not be happening over and over again unless you are giving them a reward for their behavior. And it's just like any other dog. What gets rewarded gets repeated. Dog training and people training are very similar. The way we train dogs to respond to, what do you call that? Stimuli, or to respond to whatever it may be. We train other people to treat us just like that. If we keep rewarding difficult people's behavior, they will keep coming back to us and exhibiting that behavior. And if you find at work that a conversation is getting personal all of a sudden, there's no reason you should be having that. You should not have personal conversations at work. That's not following the rules. By the way, remember books.danoconnor.com to get your free advanced chapter of the rules. One of the rules is, for professional communication, you should not be having intimate conversations, personal conversations, revealing conversations at all. If you do that, you are setting yourself up for difficult conversations with toxic coworkers. So if you want to eliminate that possibility, you can say things like, this is getting too personal for me, so I'm going to step away from this conversation. And the way when the messages that I send when I say that is that, hey, I don't have personal conversations. Maybe y'all do. I do not. So I'm going to step away from this. I'm using common professional jargon of the day when I say, I'm going to step away from this. So that might actually resonate with some people because they're used to hearing that phrase. They might not be used to people telling them, I don't have personal conversations, so I'm going to step away from this. But they will get used to it when they hear you do it and see how effective it is. Marge, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. Do we have any other? I know it's getting late, so I wanted to wrap it up quickly because we have to go. Do you have any other comments or questions that I can answer before we do that with these couple of, I have 2 more statements left, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
Well, I mean, I think it's an interesting question. What if somebody doesn't say something specifically rude, but it's just kind of a bad, disrespectful attitude where they can deny it? They can say, I don't have a bad attitude.
Well, like, give me an example.
I can't.
Well, let's say somebody makes an off-color.
I suppose someone doesn't quite come out and say, I don't like you, but like maybe they kind of do some things so that when called upon it, they could have plausible deniability. What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, remember when you just bumped me in the hall or something like that? You have a bad attitude. I'm flipped out. Something like that.
Passive-aggressive behavior. That's what people do, where they make little underhanded comments or do underhanded things, like they forget to include you in a CC about the project, in an email, that a project that you're working on, so you don't get the information you need. Suddenly you're behind and you look like a fool then in front of the client, things like that. And they can say plausible deniability. You didn't get that email? I thought you did. Did somebody, or you make a comment. No, I wasn't saying that. I was just joking, or I was just kidding. I was just asking a question. Passive aggressive behavior is the reason you want to use. Remember, we were talking about clarifying questions and spotlight questions. Spotlight questions and clarifying questions are going to be questions such as, Mark, when you say XYZ, it sounds like what you're really saying is 1, 2, 3. Isn't that what you're really saying? So you want to call people on that behavior, because if you don't do it at the time, you can't go back and do it later on. So there is no plausible deniability if you're, at the time the behavior is taking place, calling people on it and saying to them, if you want to insult my work, you could just go right ahead and do that clearly, like I'm doing with you right now. I can take it. Let people know that, so that this doesn't happen later on. But when people are saying, like if you call them on their behavior in the moment and they say things like, I wasn't making a racist comment. I wasn't making a homophobic or a ageist or a misogynistic comment. I wasn't that. I just meant, press the issue. Say things like, I don't know what you meant. I do know what you said. What you said was blah, 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 blah. And it sounds like when you say something like that, I don't know any other meaning that can come from a statement like that other than blah, blah, blah. So if that's not what you meant, You know, if you meant something other than what you said, I don't have the powers of ESP. I don't have some type of extra sensory perception that can read your mind. I have to go off of what you say. And what you said was blah, blah, blah. You know, so just hold people to account. And the problem is we don't do that. We just do it when it's convenient for us. We just do it when it really gets too hot for us, when we can't take it anymore. We have to do it all the time. And we have to prevent these situations from happening by letting people know from the get-go, oh, I don't have that type of intimate relationship with people here at work. So I'm going to keep our conversation professional, just as I'm doing right now with you. And I expect that from you as well. Is that a problem? You know, is that any, no, not a problem? Good. So you have to let people know that. And it can be kind of, you feel a little bit maybe excluded at first, but what you realize is the only way you can get a certain level of respect from everybody at work is by letting them know from the get-go, we're not on the same level. You know, we aren't. I hold myself, just as I will hold you, to a higher standard. I just see that not everybody's really living up to that standard. I'm going to, and I'm going to tell you, we don't talk like that. We don't do that. And you will notice you will be the one who is treated differently and who does get those promotions and who is seen as on a higher level because you put yourself there. You know, we decide what level we're on by the way we communicate with other people. And if you are not satisfied with the level that others see you on, remember that if you want a different result tomorrow from the result that you got today, you have to communicate tomorrow differently from how you communicated today. If you keep communicating the same way as you communicated yesterday, you will have the same experience and get the same results as you got yesterday. That's the way it is.
All right. Hey, before you get going, we'll do a couple more shout outs to Teresa and
hey, Teresa,
Joe, Mary,
hey, Joe,
Jenny, our member, she's been here a lot now.
Hi, Jenny.
We already some goofy guy named Woody McBride, DJ ESP. You know,
Woody's on.
Yes.
Hi, Woody.
He's out talking for the newly natural niece's adventure journey. She's down in Australia. Now,
I love Australia. I hope to see you soon.
Jenny and Mary. I think it's a good idea. They were saying, what about a class? Wait, where is this? Somewhere down here. P.S. Malaya Sheets Sanders wanted to say that, hey, Dan, just wanted to say that, well, that may be, has saved me from hundreds of debates. Thank you for your wisdom. so
thank you.
Mary,
by the way, for those who aren't familiar with what she's talking about, it is sometimes the simplest of solutions that make a total transformation in our life. When you learn that not only is it a possibility, but you are given, I will give you permission at any time to say to people, well, that may be, but, and then repeat yourself. You know, like this one woman wanted to sell her house at 110,000, let's say. And she knew that the realtor was going to come in and say, look, you're only going to get 90,000. So that's what we're going to list it at. And so she was ready. And because she had trouble overcoming things like that when people would when she was under pressure. And so he said, just as she had anticipated, he said something like, well, I believe that this house should be listed at 90,000. And she said, well, that may be, but we're going to list it at 110. And he said, well, you know, all the comps came in at 80. You know, your house really, that would be too much and you'll never sell it at 110. Well, that may be, but we're going to list it at 110. And he was like, well, I just think it's a huge mistake. That may be, but we're listing it at 110. And she said that like after 3 times, he was like, fine. And she listed it at 110 and it sold at 110. And she was like, oh my God, because it was obvious, you know, he just wanted to make it a quick sale for his own good. And like when you go to barter, you know, we're from Mexico. Well, we're from Mexico. We go to the tianguis a lot in Mexico, the street vendors. And it's funny when you say to them, you know, things like, how much is that? And they say, oh, it's 50 pesos. Oh, well, I've got 30. Well, you know, it's 50 pesos. Well, that may be, but I've got 30. Are you going to take it or not? When you realize, oh my gosh, I've been wasting so much headspace. You know, my brain cells are limited. You know, there is a finite number left and I don't want to waste them. Right? You know, yeah. I don't want to waste them thinking about new ways to argue with the street vendor or the real estate agent or the kids or the clients or the difficult people at work. All I have to do is say, well, that may be, but, and repeat what I just said as I'm thinking about, should I put chicken or ground beef in my hamburger helper tonight? You know, what do you think? Well, you know, hamburger helper doesn't seem like it needs any help at all to me. I can be thinking about all that stuff rather than thinking about how am I going to respond to you. And by the way, when we start to respond to people and engage and take the bait, that's when it's the beginning of the end. We're doomed, because people who are trying to get us to change our story, that's what they recognize as a reward. What gets rewarded gets repeated. So we want to stop doing that and just start repeating ourselves. That's what savvy, polished, powerful communicators do. Right, Bart?
Absolutely.
And Marty, by the way, if you want to be a polished, savvy, powerful communicator, what do you have to do?
Press the join button, and also go to books.danoconnor.com
That too.
and sign up for his book review. Hey, say Sarah.
Talk like one.
What?
If you want to be seen as a savvy communicator, talk like one. If you want to be a supportive, loving spouse, talk like one. You want to be a good parent, talk like one.
Absolutely. Sarah, who's one of your members, has a very important question. Can she see Buddy?
Sarah. Yes, very important. Yes.
Can she see Buddy? Is Buddy there?
Oh, Buddy. Yes. Buddy. Oh, he's right here. Oh, he's right here. Hold on. I don't know if you can say, Bud.
Come here, Bud. Come here, how are you?
He's getting up. He takes a minute now. Come on, Bud. Come here. Buddy. He was right in the middle. Oh, here he comes. Hold on. Oh, he's pushing himself up. Oh, good boy. Can you see him here? Come here, baby.
No. There you go. Yep.
Go and say hello. To Sarah. Hold on. Here we go. Can you still see me?
Yep.
Oh, look, he's just so tight. He's so tight. Sorry, he's not awake yet. He's waiting. His walker's going to come in just a moment. Can you still see him? Hi, baby.
Yeah.
Well, his walker's going to come in just a moment. So that's Bud. He's still doing okay. You can't hear me much, but he can still feel the love, right? Here you go. Okay, goodbye, Bud. I love you. Go back to sleep now. Go back. Here you go. Under the desk. That's your favorite spot. Shake it off. Okay. All right. Any more questions?
Well, just I think Jenny member and also Mary member were both asking whether or not. Well, Mary asked a question and Jenny supported it about possibly a class or maybe one of these lives on what to do with how to handle narcissist, judgmental, super religious mothers. And basically, I think we could just have one on Grandma May.
Well, I frequently say, when it comes to mothers, none of the rules apply. I mean, none of them. None. Not one single rule applies, except for the one rule that if I can show up as loving as I can possibly be, that is what will transform that relationship. Because in relationships like that, with your mother, what you really need is a miracle. That's what you need, because none of the rules in our mortal plane apply to that relationship. And so if you want to transform that into something other than what it is now, that's what it sounds like. You have to transform that water into wine, that relationship into something else. The only way you can really do that is through a miraculous event and a miraculous, yes.
But Dan, isn't there, I mean, to your point, and I don't know Mary's mom, but I know people probably like Mary's mom, and she was saying earlier that she doesn't like gay folks, the mom, so like Mary doesn't have to sit in a room if mom's talking about stuff. I mean, mom might not change, but I think to your point, just as a reminder, we've all got the power to get up and leave too, correct?
We do. But are you going to feel good about that? Are you going to feel good about walking out on the relationship that you have with your mother? Chances are she's not, but that's probably a big deal. It's like she loves her mother. She just can't handle some of the views that her mother has. And I would remind everybody who's listening to that, when you have a reaction to the views that someone holds, even whether it's about you or not, her mother might have a particular view of a group of people of which Sarah identifies, with which Sarah identifies. And maybe her mother does or does not know that, and is saying things that she's interpreting as unloving to her or hateful to her, or maybe someone that she loves. But any reaction that we have to anything that someone says or does is not about them. That is about us. And so if you want that relationship to be healed, the only way to do it is to recognize that. And if you need a miracle, then ask for it. And a miracle is a change in perception is all it is. And if you change the way you're looking at that. I don't know what it means to change the way you're looking at this, but I know since it's your mother, what I'm saying is the rules do not apply. So I can't give you anything to heal that, but you can. And it would come from within you. For example, I might suggest that you listen to the 9 principles. The 9 principles you can find in my store. And the 9 principles is something that you would go through when you're working through an issue, just as you're describing now. And by the time you get to the 9th principle, you should work it all out. I mean, in your brain, you'll recognize, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing wrong, or that's what I'm going to do differently. Like, what do you want from your mother? What do you believe is lacking in that relationship that's causing this disease? Like, Marty, what do you think it would be, for example? Just give me an example.
What's lacking in my mother, who's kind of
not yours? No, not yours. Let's say that you're
judgmental
pretending you're Sarah.
Perspective.
Perspective. Okay.
Perspective, possible connections with those folks, or like a real connection. But
so if she were just blankety blank, that would help heal this relationship. What would be the blank?
In this one, let's just say, so Mary said, well, hates it if she were inclusive.
Okay.
Of alternative lifestyles. Lifestyles. Yeah.
So what you want is for them to be more inclusive and more sensitive. Maybe because it's an impossibility that this relationship lacks anything other than what I'm not giving it. That's an impossibility. So if what I'm feeling is, oh, I wish she would be more inclusive, I wish she'd be more respectful, maybe I need to be more inclusive and I need to be more respectful for the way my mother feels. Because there's one thing I know, that she loves me. I'm assuming that Sarah knows that, and I'm assuming it's true. If it's not true, I apologize on behalf of your mother that she's, faulting, or that she's lacking that. But I believe she probably knows my mom loves me. That's why she's still in this relationship. And maybe I could be more respectful and just recognize that for whatever reason, she sees this differently from the way I see it. And she's probably bringing it up to me because she wants me to be safe. And she's willing to have me hate her or dislike her or dismiss her, as long as, if she believes what she says could possibly make a difference to help me, she's going to say that, regardless of, even if I walk away from her. That's real love. And maybe I could be inclusive of that. Maybe I could think of her perspective. Maybe, there are so many different things, different ways I could look at that would help me heal this relationship. And you'll know that you have found it when you feel, oh, I understand. Because you know how it's true? You can't help but love somebody when you really know them. When you really get to know anybody, there comes that moment where you're like, oh God, now I understand why you act that way. Oh geez, oh my gosh. Now I get it. And I can't help but feel empathy if I were, let's say, not so loving to you in the past. Now that I know you with a capital K and I recognize you with a big R, then I get it. And I can't help but love you. And all that other stuff that was not loving thoughts, I recognize it for what it is. It's just a distraction. It's not even real. So if anything if it's not a loving thought, if it's not coming from love, it is not real. It is an illusion. But it's difficult sometimes to look away from that and see through it. What we need to do is get to know them, because when you know the real truth of them, you know the love in them, and you can't help but love it back. So, and also all those other things just fall away as distractions. That's what they are. That's the imperfections of them. We want to be forgiven for ours. We're just guilty of the same thing in a different form. I'm sure everybody, we have the same problem and then we have the same solution, just in different forms.
Dan, can you give that link again for the book?
Which book? Oh, books.danoconnor.training.com. That's
Thanks.
it. Yep.
You're at 50 minutes, so I know that you were...
Okay, I know I'm going over 20. Okay, by the way, the last 2 statements, I regret having entered into this conversation, so at this point, I'm going to withdraw from it. So if you ever find yourself in a conversation where you think, oh, this was a mistake, just let people know that, in 2 parts. You can say whatever words you want. I regret having started this conversation, but I am going to end it now, or I'm going to withdraw from it. Let people know. And that was the 5th one. Excuse me. That's okay. I'm not going to give you any more. That was number 5. I regret having started this conversation. I regret having brought up this theme, and I'm going to withdraw from it. So have a nice day. And by the way, one way that you can always end a conversation let's say that you're in a convention and you meet somebody and all of a sudden they're a talker, or at work, you run into a colleague and you're talking in the hallway. You can always stop and just say, well, Marty, it was really nice talking with you. And then you walk away. It was great catching up with you. It was nice meeting you. It was good seeing you. And once you say that, that is a cue to almost everybody that, oh, I guess you're leaving now. Then you just walk away. Simple. That's the way of saying goodbye. So, Marty, I realize I've gone way over. Is there any pressing thing besides, remember, to get exclusive time and your questions answered, in a smaller meeting, which we'll be having in the future, make sure to hit that join button. It's different from the subscribe button. Hit the join button. And that's on YouTube, by the way. If you're not watching this on YouTube, head on over to YouTube. If you would like to join our book launch team, remember to go to books.danocontraining.com. And the very top of the page, I believe, is to become part of our launch team. And you also get a free preview chapter from the new book, The Rules. There was something else, Mart, that I forgot to tell people to do. Do you remember what it was? Oh, if you look at I don't have the link with me, but if you look at the last, not live video, but the last video that I posted on, I'm looking like this in the thumbnail, that has a flash sale link at the top. So you can get, I think it's Step Out of the Shadows and Speak at like 75% off. So if you're looking for a discount code or a coupon, that's the best one we have. Anything else on that? Anything else I forgot to tell them?
No, but I do think that maybe we should have a whole something on Dad's affirmations, like go through them all and make like a book or talk about them. And he's got
that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Anyway. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good.
Thank you, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. I realize that I'm starting at 5:30 rather than 5. I'm doing the very best I can. Someday soon, I will start promptly at 5 with everything ready. I'm just hoping that will be very soon. So thank you for all sticking with us as we get there. Peace. Anything else, Mart? Bye, guys. Bye. Thank you. Hold on. I have no idea. Here we go.